On today's video, I'm going to show you how I use XD to design a homepage for a website. We're going to talk about not only the features of the software, but also some fundamental design principles that you can apply whatever software that you're going to use to design your websites. Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Ron Sega. Welcome back to the free web design course. So today we're going to dive into Adobe XD, but as I said in the intro, the principles that I'll cover here will probably work with any screen design software. So whether you're using Figma or Sketch, you can still follow along and understand the principles that we're going to use. So in today's video, I'm going to go through kind of redesigning this website, colors of change, and I would show you how I would approach working in Adobe XD when I do this redesign. Let's start with some of the core principles. When I start working on a web project, how I set up my documents and what are the process that I go through when I'm just starting out. So the first thing, I open up a new document, and this is kind of the default web design setting, so a web screen, and it's 1900 pixels wide. Now the first thing that I want to set up here is basically the grid, so the underlying layout structure for how wide and what columns I'm going to be using throughout the website. Now we talked about this when we talked about layout, and basically what I'm looking for is, first determining how wide the content of the website is going to be. So in every website, basically, there is kind of a container, as you can see here, and I can even measure it, and it's something around almost 1100 pixels around here, and that's probably also what I want to use here. So here in XD, I can turn on the layout, and this is the basic grid that I'm getting, but I can go ahead and make some changes because, as you can see, this is pretty wide. If I'll drag some rectangular here and say, hey, I want this to be 1100, and let's center this. So the content should be much more contained than what we have here. So I'll go back into the layout, and the simple way to do this is just add padding from the left and right like this until we get to the size that basically we want. Do I want the gutters to be this way? Yes. Do I want 12 columns? Yes. Why? We talked about this in the layout. 12 is a number that's divided into a lot of numbers, so we can create multiple variations of columns. So in terms of the layout and the grid, I think this looks good. We can start working on that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do before I go ahead and start designing is I want to get some basic kind of fundamental styles of typography that I can work with more easily. Now, it's always very useful to fine-tune it when you're designing. You can't set up your whole typographic system before you have the design because maybe you'll change a font, maybe something needs a little tweaking, but it's helpful to set the basic, settings of typography. And we talked about this in the video about typography. You want to have some basic kind of sizes for your H1, H2, H3, which are the biggest headings in the website. And you can see here they have, actually I don't think they have enough contrast here in terms of the sizing, but you do have kind of a major, that's probably the H1, that's probably H2, and then you have here, maybe that's H3 and just a paragraph here. So I'm going to use type scale just because it gives you kind of a very easily clear hierarchy based here on the major third or on some different kind of like hierarchy scales. So I'm just going to use this in Poppins. I think it's a good font that we can work with. So let's start with this. I'm going to use this size, which is almost 50 pixels. So it's 48.8. I'm actually going to round that to 50 pixels for my H1, which is the biggest title that I'll use. So remember, I might fine tune this later on. This is just so I'll have something easy to work with. So let's call this is my big title, which is called H1, heading number 1. And let's see. So it's already 50 size, so that's pretty good. I'm going to right click this and create add character style to asset. And if I'll open up my asset here, now I'll have this character style, which I'll rename H1. By the way, I might want to edit the color of this. So in this case, I think the H1, because it's going to be on a dark color, it's going to be white. So I'm actually going to edit this into a white color. So I can't see this right now, but it doesn't really matter. I'll put this here so we can just see this. Now I'm going to create another one. So let's call this the H2. And for H2, I'm not sure I'm going to choose this. I'm actually going to choose this, I think, because I want a little bit of gap, right? A little bit of contrast. So this is going to be 31 pixels. I'm going to round that into 30. So I'm calling this will be H2. And let's again make this white and turn this into 30. Of course, if you want to change the kind of make it bold or something, which I might do later on, I might do this later on. For now, I'll just add this to the styles asset as well, H2. And I might do two more, just H3 and the normal text. So H3, I'm going to use this one, 25 is going to be H3, and this was going to be black actually. This will be H3, which I'll make it black because at this point we're probably going to have this on some kind of a background. So this is going to be 25, and let's make this character H3. And the next one is going to be the paragraph, so actual text that's going to be written. So I'm going to use 16. So let's delete this and do this will be my text, whatever. And I'm going to make this 16, maybe actually 18, so it's not too small. I made a mess here, but never mind. So now I'm going to call this P, which stands for paragraph. So that's the text. So now I have my basic setup for the doc. I can actually get started working. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about structure, because the way that we're going to structure it here in our software kind of leads to how we're going to develop this later on. And so you have to remember in development that we have we talked about the concept of container that keeps everything not wider than this. We also have the concept of sections. So the website a lot of times is divided. As you can see here, we have the hero section. Here we have kind of a secondary section and a third section. So the way I'm going to group them together so it's easy to maintain throughout my working on the project, and also because again it kind of reflects how this is going to be developed. Now, one thing that I don't like in the way that they designed this website is the navigation is actually down here, which is kind of hard if you're just landing to see what's on the website. I'm going to put the navigation at the top, and I'm going to regard this as kind of a section. So I'm just going to create this area here. I'm also going to make it black even though I don't know if I'll keep the background later on. But for now, I'll keep it black, and this is going to be kind of the navigation section. So let's bring in the logo here. Let me copy the logo. Now, the logo is actually going to be, I think for the navigation, it's going to be outside of the container. And that's a lot of times we do that just for the kind of the navigation section. It's wider than it's not have to be contained throughout the container. A lot of times the navigation will extend that just because when we land into a website, the way that our eyes work, we immediately look at the left corner and we want to see the logo there and the navigation on the top right. So we don't have to contain them throughout the, just with the container. So I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to put the navigation. So note here in the navigation, they have basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of main buttons, and then there's the big donate call to action, and then there's search, and there's also the social media buttons. I'm going to try and simplify this a little bit. I don't want to put the icons to the social networks. We're going to put this in the cover, in the footer, and the search, we don't have to have this kind of opened up. We can have it that when you click the search, it's going to open up the search, and that way we'll be able to kind of minimize them. So let's go about campaigns. Let's create these. Now, those actually, I'm not sure they fit in one of these styles, but let's try. Let's do about, and let's see if we put them at H3. Maybe that's a little too big. So actually, I'm just going to make this bold, and yeah, at 18, or maybe just a little bit bigger, so 25. So it's, maybe it's H3, similar to H3. I'm going to turn it into white because it's on this. No, you know what? Actually, 18 was better. I think this is way too big. So we have the about, campaigns, campaigns. What else do we have here? So our campaigns and create a campaign. All right, so our campaigns. By the way, this is a little bit unclear. So if I would work with them as a client, I would try to clarify this, but at the moment we'll just use what they did. Join us and press. Join us and then press. And then we have the donate button, which we want to make a button. Now, I don't really like how they make this a button, just because it's not clear that it's a button, right? This shape, we're not really used to seeing this shape as, you know, as a button. So I'm gonna create kind of a little bit more traditional button. I think it will work better, but I'm gonna use the color of kind of like orangey, kind of like they did. Send it to back and turn this into donate. Now here I'm going to turn the text into black just so that we can have a little bit more contrast. And I think this is it. Now note, because this is a button that we're probably going to be reusing throughout the website, as you can see, if we'll scroll along, join us. So this is kind of a button that we'll reuse again and again. So I'm going to actually turn this, I'm going to make this even something like this. I'm going to turn this into a component so that we can reuse this again and again. I do this by selecting the background, the rectangular, and the text, and I'm turning this into a component, and I'll call this CTA button. Now by doing this, I can also turn in the padding and make sure that the padding is similar on all sides. Not sure, maybe it was better when, you know, there was a little bit more padding left and right. But it does make sense. Now that it's a component and the padding is turned on, if I need to change the text here, like join us, you can see that the button is going to resize itself, which will make my life easier. Now, I want to arrange this. So I want to make sure that the space that we have here on the right and on the top is pretty much equal, and pretty similar to what we have here, so that it seems like we have kind of a padding that's equal on all sizes. And then I want to make sure that the spacing between all these elements is equal. So I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to use this spacing to make sure that there's equal space between them. So now the navigation looks pretty solid. I actually forgot the space, the search button. So I would usually go into something like Icon Finder and do a search button and download kind of a glyph one for free. Only show free icons, and I think this is pretty solid. And I'm going to download this in PNG. Yeah, no, SVG is better. I'll be able to change the colors and everything. So let me download that and drag that into Adobe XD. Whoa, so that's pretty big. So I'm going to just put it here as a white. I'm actually going to turn this gray a little bit because I want this to be in kind of a lower hierarchy. No, maybe I'll put this back into white. No, but you see, because the icon is a little bit thicker than the actual text, it grabs a little bit more attention. It takes more attention. That's why I need to decrease the color a little bit so that it will be equal in the kind of attention that it's grabbing. So I'm decreasing the hierarchy by changing its color, and so it will take less attention. But I think now it's kind of solid. If this was fully white, as you saw earlier, it would take up too much attention. And now making sure that the spacing is equal. Now basically we have the navigation ready, and I can go ahead and group all of these things together and open up the layer and see that they're all grouped. And I'm going to call this navigation. And probably I'm also going to turn this into a component. Why? Because if we're going to have multiple pages on the website, I want this component to be linked. I don't want to just copy and paste this, because if I'll need to add or make a change in the navigation, I want this to, be applied to all of the pages in the website instead of having to do this again and again. Now, the next section that I'll want to create is probably the hero section. So I'm going to create kind of a background for this. And here I'm going to use I'm actually going to use the image that they have in the background. So let's take this and throw it in here. Up. Throw it in here. All right. But so this is kind of the basic, and I think, so now it looks like it's full screen. Of course, we don't really know where the screen is going to be, but let's assume it's going to be somewhere around here. The only thing I want to make sure, because we want to bring in some text here, I might want to crop the image a little bit differently. So remember, you can always choose how you crop the image, right? And it might be more powerful than right now that we have the focus on the woman's face. And I want to, so now I want to put the main text call to action here on the left, and that's going to be aligned on the layout. So now I can see that I have enough space here. I don't know if I have enough contrast. I might want to open this image up in Photoshop later to darken the website. Let's go ahead and bring in the H1 title here. So let's drop it in here. Well, let's just take a text and give it the H1 title. So I'm going to bring in the text from here. Let's paste it here. Oh, well, yeah, that was simpler. Sorry, forgive my bad use of shortcuts. Now you can see by the fact that there's too much line spacing that the text, we didn't do enough good work, or we didn't take care of all the parameters when it comes to the text. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this text style because I want to tighten up the line height. Now it looks better. There was too much line height. And also I might consider making this like really bold. Yeah, I think this makes this more powerful. Now remember, when you're editing typography, there's a lot of impact on how you capitalize the letter as, sorry. Oh no, we lost all our edits. So why did we lose all our edits? Oh, that's right. There's a big impact on how you capitalize. My favorite is what's called sentence capitalizing. So that's basically capitalizing every letter. But of course, if you choose to make this all caps, that would look way more aggressive, right? So that's part of your choice as a designer, right? How you capitalize this. I'm going to remove the layout for a second just because I want to see. Now I would say that this is not enough contrast here. So I would probably open this up in Photoshop or add some kind of a color overlay on top, right? Something like, reduce the opacity, but something like this that I can then, put over everything. So this is the lazy way to do this. If I would do this in Photoshop, I would probably bring back her face because I think that's really impactful. So right now, let's see. Let's make this 50% or 60%. So in the lazy way of doing things, it still works. Now let's copy that and turn this into an H2. Let's go back here and turn this into H2 and then bring in the second sentence. Now I see that this is way too much text for an H2, so how about H3? So I think let's duplicate this, or let's edit this to, or maybe I can just edit the text here to white because this is, and also edit the line height here as well. Probably need to do this because I overrode it. So this looks better. Now, because I already have, a button component, I can drag it here because we have another donate and also join us. So for the join us, what we can do is make another button called join us, double click to join us. And then, of course, if I chose to capitalize the first button, I would also do join us. Here, you can probably set by the way, the text here to uppercase, which would save up the time of holding the shift like I did right now. And because this is a different button, I'm going to choose the color here to this kind of yellowish, because this is basically this is the secondary button. So now we have basically our first two sections. And let me go ahead and click all of this and group them together as, I'll call this the hero section. All right, so note now that it's very important to me to make sure that my layer section is clean so I know what's going on here. I can always open this up to see the components inside, but otherwise I have gazillions of layers, and this really helps me to later on understand how I need to develop this, right? We have the navigation section, then the hero section, and then we would go on and on. So I hope this video was helpful for you in trying to understand how I think about setting up the documentation, working with components, and organizing my doc to make things more efficient and helpful for the next step of development. In the next video in this series, we'll take this full page and turn it to responsive and talk about all things responsive when it comes to web design. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you are subscribed. The rest of the videos in this free course are in the playlist below. See you on the next video.